All right, we got a full house today, everybody. I think we're in for a big treat. It's been a great Touchdown Club season all year. Hey, yeah, let's go ahead. Hey, clap. There we go. Listen, I think we're going to, I don't know, it's just a gut feeling. Because I ran into a reporter who covered Rocket when he was at Notre Dame and said, Rocket was a really shy guy. And but what I've heard since then, he's not. And I think we're in for a treat today. So let's go ahead and get started with the program without any further delay. Let's bring up Gary Underwood to listen to a word of prayer.
Thank you, guys. I have some really great news for you and some really bad news for you. Good news is the election's over tomorrow night. The bad news is the 2016 election starts Wednesday morning. And you think I'm kidding, I'm not. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the day and the opportunity to gather together. We thank you for the food and those that prepared it and served it. We ask you to use us today in your service. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate that. Yeah, Rocket was so fast. He's still fast that somehow we had Wes Sutton and R.J. Hawk meeting Rocket at the airport. Somehow he went right by him. They didn't see him. So Rocket's down there at the airport looking for somebody to pick him up. So you still got speed, Rocket. I'm glad to hear that. I thought Blake Anderson was great last week. Do you guys agree? I thought he was very good. I think he's a good hire for ASU. Reminder, next week is the Southwest Conference Hall of Fame. And if you've got tickets, thank you so much. But if you can, get a buddy, get a friend, get a coworker to come because we really want to put on a show because, we got these folks from Texas coming in. They got the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. You got the Southwest Conference Hall of Fame, and we're already behind. Again, of course, we got ripped off that we don't have as many honorees as Texas, and that's why they're letting us do 9 next week. My understanding is everybody's coming except for probably 2 people. Lance Allworth was very disappointed, but he's having surgery on his wrist, not going to be able to make it. He has recorded a thank you. And then Clyde Scott, because of his age, I don't think will be there. And he's got a large group of his family. But everybody else, Eddie, Sidney, Lloyd Phillips, Billy Moore, my Lord, it's sort of the Mount Rushmore of Razorback sports. So I know this crew will be there. But I encourage you this week to try to encourage some more folks to go online. Now, here's the deal. All you folks that are here at 10 o'clock every day, you get your wish next week because the doors will open at 10:30. How about that? It's almost like Touchdown Club brunch. So we're going to start the program at 11:30. That's the only. We got 9 honorees. They're supposed to have 3 minutes to speak. So would you mind if we went a little over 1 o'clock, just a little bit by chance? Hopefully we won't. But anyway, so we're going to start that thing at 10:30. Doors open at 10:30. So get that message out. Also, Hazel Thomas. Where's Hazel? Stand up, Hazel. Hazel has gone online, and she wants to make a challenge to all the Little Rock Touchdown Club members. She has donated $100 in honor of Hayden's Hope. That is Dari Noka's charity, and what that is to raise awareness for pediatric organ donation. And what that basically does, they work with families that are going through that struggle, and they've got medical bills, travel costs, and the funds they raise from Hayden's Hope go toward those families who are struggling. So she has done $100. Dari was made aware of it, was very touched that Hazel would be willing to do that. So if you're a Touchdown Club member and want to do that, he's actually going to send us some wristbands of Hayden, who is the little boy that he lost at how many months was it, Hazel? 39 days. So I thought Dari was a class act when he was here. But you can either see Hazel, you can go online, you can talk to Debbie or myself, and we'll let Dari know how many of us want to do that. I told him I'd be always willing to have one of the wristbands up here in honor of Hayden's Hope. So thank you, Hazel, for doing that. Also, if you're a member, great news, Touchdown Club, found out from the National Football Foundation. That is the organization that Rocket's not in yet, but will be soon. The College Football Hall of Fame has said our chapter, remember, I said to encourage you to go from Little Rock Touchdown Club member to also being a National College Football Hall of Fame member so we can vote on the College Football Hall of Fame. We have been tabbed one of the fastest growing National Football Foundation chapters in the country. How about that? We had dipped down to 25 members when Jeff Long asked us to do this. This year we had over 100 members join up. And I'm going to tell you, there are not too many chapters. There's a couple that have, 200 or 300, but nobody's had as much growth, so they want to let me know that we're one of the fastest growing. And voting is going on now. Brandon Burlsworth, Danny Ford, a few others that have Arkansas connections are there. So you can still join this late if you want to. Just make sure you vote and represent our club in a good way. I just wanted to share that with you. Real quick, let's thank our sponsors, Twin City Limousine. Papa, thank you for being there to get Rocket and all of our speakers each week. Cranford Johnson Robinson Woods, Richard McEwen has done a great job, and I will be going to OBU this week to talk with their students and helping us with social media, promote the Cliff Harris Award this year. Little Rock Convention and Visitor Bureau, David Russell, thank you for your big support as always. We're proud to be called the Little Rock Touchdown Club. 103.7 The Buzz, thank you, Justin. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Steve Johnson. Tommy Smith here today representing The Buzz. Always here every Monday at the Touchdown Club. Epic Health, who sponsors that segment. Thanks to Mike Whitfield. And guys, don't forget to go by and get a free screening if you can. It could save your life. They also are the sponsor of the Sully Award. If we have time, I had an interesting call that we might play. It was no Rex Nelson call, but it had a unique, the guy had a unique delivery. If we have time, we'll play that a little bit later. Thank you to Epic Health. Wendy's, Nan Trammell, thank you so much for sponsoring the Dan Hampton Award and Willie Roaf Awards. Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings, Judy Henry, and her great staff of attorneys. Just found out today, I let Rex know, and Rocket, you know that Cliff Harris was one of the great Cowboys of all time. Well, last year was our first year doing this, and it's 500 colleges in Division II, III, and NAIA. We had 100 nominees from all over the country, and we whittled it down to 50 finalists, which people say, well, that's not really whittling it down. You got 500 colleges and 5,000 defensive starters representing those schools. I think getting down to 50 is pretty good. But we had 10% of our finalists that have made NFL rosters from Division II. That means we picked out Judy and the staff of Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings and Cliff and all that selection committee, picked out 50 of the 50, 10% made NFL rosters. So I think that's great for our club. Cliff was excited about it. Of course, the winner will get this trophy, a new one that we get every year, $3,000 worth. But thank you to Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings for their vision and sponsorship and supporting the Cliff Harris Award. I also want to thank Crane Automotive. Drew Dees has probably made every meeting since we've had meetings here, and the Crane folks have been super to step up, and Drew really believes in us and always brings a great crew, and one of the largest automobile dealers in the South, and we're thankful for Larry's support and Drew, your support. Thanks so much for believing in the Touchdown Club. Also, the Democrat Gazette, Wally Hall and Tabitha Cunningham will introduce our Player of the Week here in just a minute. And interestingly enough, great to have George Macris and Adam Mitchell back with Simmons. And, 2 weeks ago it was a tornado. Last week you had a big meeting. I mean, exciting things are happening at Simmons Bank. And if you need a loan, Rocket, these are the guys you need to talk to. Been around 100 years. But here is the stat of the day. We were talking a minute ago before the meeting started, and George shared something with me. One of our honorees at the Southwest Conference Hall of Fame is Clyde Smackover-Scott. Lo and behold, that George's mother once dated Clyde Smackover-Scott. How about that? Anything else you want to share about that? No, that's it. All right. Well, she had good taste. I'll say that for sure. Thank you so much to Simmons Bank. We would not be here, and we couldn't bring in guys like Rocket if it weren't for Simmons and all the other great sponsors. Let's give them a round of applause if you can. Glad to have Matt Johnson back, who does our AV work, does such a good job for us. Matt, thank you for being here today and always doing a great job. Dwayne Duncan, our photographer, who's taken about 10,000 pictures. I was looking back on Facebook, and all these years you do a great job. Thank you, Dwayne. RJ Hawk is back doing social media today. LR Touchdown Club is the Twitter handle, at LR Touchdown Club. You can go to Facebook and find the Touchdown Club, lrtouchdown.com, and hashtag LRTDC. So we've got you covered in the social media goes, as far as social media goes. So thank you, RJ, for doing that. Our check-in ladies are the best in the business. We have a full house today, and they always do such a good job. Debbie Wyman, who is doing not only her first year, she's having to do the Cliff Harris Award and all that, is doing fantastic. Let's give them a round of applause for the great job they do. And at this time, let's introduce our Arkansas Democrat Gazette High School Player of the Week. He is Ladarius Skelton, a junior quarterback from Pine Bluff High School. Now, looking at his number 2 weeks ago when he beat El Dorado, or they did, 38-19, on the surface doesn't look very impressive as always. 13 of 20 for 126 yards passing, rushed for 136 yards. But somehow out of that, he was responsible for 6 touchdowns. He threw 4 touchdowns and ran 2 touchdowns. They are 7-2 overall. They won last week. I believe it was 49-28, Coach, right? Beat Sheridan. This week they will play an undefeated Benton squad Thursday night. And his coach is Bobby Boulding, and the Boulding boys do a great job. And I saw, of course, Simmons went down there and greeted them. But He's a junior quarterback, and Coach said he's an amazing young man. So let's give Ladarius Skelton a Little Rock Touchdown Club round of applause. Snappy dresser. He's started every year so far. He's got one more year to go. So, Coach is great to have a young man like that, and congratulations to you and all your success. Now, I knew this was going to happen. Shh. I had somebody call me this week, and they knew that Rocket was speaking, and they know Rocket, and so they wanted to know. They thought they could introduce Rocket. So I said, okay, you can say a few words. So if you'll bear with me, just try not to make too much noise. Rocket, this is apparently somebody you're pretty close with. So I'm going to try to put him on the phone here.
Hello, Little Rock Touchdown Club members. This is your favorite coach, the Lou Holtz guy. It's a great honor in introducing you to your next speaker, Raheem Rocket Ismail. I've known him a long time. I recruited him back in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, back in 1986 and 7. I had the honor of meeting his family, his brothers, the missile, the bomb, and his mom, the launching pad. I understand he even has a son now coming up in the high school ranks called The Rock. But I first saw Rocket, and I said, look at this guy. He kind of reminds me of myself. He's about 5'9", 154 pounds, and looked like he'd been afflicted with scurvy and beriberi, but boy, was he fast. I saw him play tennis when I recruited him, and went back and told my wife, this Rocket Ismail is going to be a great football player for University of Notre Dame. She said, how do you know? You saw him playing tennis. And I said, but Beth, you don't understand. He was playing against himself. You know, he went on to Notre Dame, and he had a great, outstanding college career. Matter of fact, he was one of the most electrifying players I've ever coached. He and David Hasselhoff. We won the national championship at Notre Dame. He won the Walter Camp Player of the Year award, and he came in second to that Weasel Ty Webb Defner. That was one of the biggest con jobs in the history of college football, that he didn't win that award. So, and most importantly, he helped me get in the College Football Hall of Fame. I do have a little problem with Rocket. He left pro early and signed a contract with the CFL history for $4.5 million a year with the Toronto Astronauts. You know, and I thought he was going to be making a lot of money, and I said, hey, Rocky, what would you do? I thought about going into investments with him and stuff. So what would you do if you had an industrial plant? He said, I'd water that thing every day, coach. And I knew I'd better just stick to coaching to make my income there. But anyway, went on to CFL history and NFL, and but a most successful rap career starring in the song "Got You Looking." But most importantly, I'm proud of Rocket Ismail for going back and earning his degree at the University of Notre Dame. And Rocket, I just want to tell you, you'll meet a lot of nice people in Little Rock, but don't let them fool you. Most of them like Notre Dame in November, about like their IRS agent in April. So I'd suggest you introduce yourself as former Dallas Cowboy Rocket Ismail, and you might have a chance there, buddy. So I hope to see you soon in the College Football Hall of Fame, and good luck today, and I'll be talking to y'all soon.
All right, thanks, Coach. Thanks. Here we go. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate that. There we go. Coach Holtz, never at a loss for words. All right, we had a big weekend of college football. Please welcome Rex Nelson, everybody.
Well, I'm not sure how I follow the Lou Holtz guy. I mean, all I've got to report is same song, third verse. Another close SEC loss for the Hogs. Gary, you and I, where'd Gary go? We ran the preacher off. It's so bad today. I was going to say, Gary, you and I were raised in the Baptist church, and we know all about those third verses, don't we? It says, going to ask the organist to play one more verse of that, Just As I Am. So if anybody wants to come down, my daddy would always kick me under the table, Rocket. That meant the Cowboys had a noon kickoff, and that preacher needed to hurry up. I do have good news to bring you, though. Vegas has established Arkansas as a 2-point favorite against the open date this week. So did want to give you some positive news to start the week. All right, this time it was against the number one team in the country on the road. Hogs are 4-5 overall, 0-5 in the SEC. State goes to 8-0, 5-0. That state 11-game winning streak, of course, began right here in Little Rock on a cold, cold day at War Memorial Stadium last November. Even on just one good leg, Dak Prescott still was 18 of 27 passing for a career-high 331 yards. First time he has passed for more than 300 yards in his career. Mississippi State led in total offense 459 to 401, even though Arkansas led handily in time of possession 38-46 to 21-14. So, again, close but no dice, SEC losing streak, 17 games. I will remind you the record at Arkansas for consecutive conference losses is 20 games from 1940 through 43. So Arkansas must win one of its final three games, LSU, Ole Miss, or Missouri, to keep from tying that record this season. Razorbacks go to 4-17 against number one teams. Most recent win, of course, against a number one, that 50-48 triple overtime win against LSU 7 years ago. Arkansas has now lost 14 consecutive games to ranked teams. The most recent win over a ranked team, Kansas State Cotton Bowl, January 7th, 2012. Arkansas, though, was the first team this season to lead Mississippi State at halftime. Dan Mullen teams are only 4-24 when trailing at halftime. So you had to feel pretty good at halftime, but coming up just short in the final seconds of the game. Meanwhile, and I know some of you were like me, you were trying to flip because it was a classic SEC game in Oxford coming to a close at just about the same time as Auburn survives Ole Miss 35-31. Tigers go to 7-1 and 4-1. Rebels lose their second straight. They fall to 7-2, 4-2 in the conference in a play that will be remembered for many years by fans of both of these schools. Laquan Treadwell, injured, loses the football just before crossing the goal line with what may have been the winning score with 1:30 left. So Auburn does it again at the end. They've had a knack for that for 2 years now. Auburn finishes with 507 yards. Ole Miss finishes with 492 yards, so almost 1,000 yards in that game, and it was almost even. Nick Marshall, 15 of 22 passing for Auburn for 254. Bo Wallace, 28 of 40 passing for Ole Miss for 362. Meanwhile, Will Muschamp lives to coach another week. I'm not saying another year, just another week. His Gators upset Georgia in the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, 38-20. Florida goes to 4-3 overall, 3-3 in the conference. Georgia falls to 6-2 and 4-2. Now, I don't think anybody raised their hands when I asked Florida last week, did they? Did anybody? I don't think so. Florida had lost, I don't blame you, 10 of its previous 13 games. Muschamp, get this, had been 0-7 in that series, including 0-4 when he was a Georgia defensive back. Matt Jones and Kevin Taylor combined for 389 yards rushing for Florida in that game. So look who's first in the SEC East, Missouri again. Didn't see that coming. Tigers go to 7-2 overall, 4-1 in conference, 20-10 over Kentucky up in Columbia. Kentucky falls to 5-4 and 2-4. That was Kentucky's third consecutive loss. In other words, it's time for basketball in Lexington. Matty Mock, 18 of 33 passing, 164 yards and 2 TDs for the Tigers. South Carolina. Boy, the old ball coach sold us a bill of goods this year, didn't he? A lot of us had him picked in the East. They continue to struggle. They're at home on Saturday, but Tennessee completes a 9-yard pass to tie the game with 11 seconds left. The Vols then win on a 32-yard field goal in overtime. South Carolina had led that game by 14 points with less than 5 minutes remaining. Tennessee's 4-5 and 1-4. South Carolina is 4-5 and 2-5. I forgot that game was even on the SEC network. I actually flipped over to the flipped over to CBS to root for Navy against Notre Dame. Sorry about that, Rocket. I'm looking for an upset. Now, my brother-in-law played for the Naval Academy, so I have a reason. I have a reason. Texas A&M struggled without quarterback Kenny Hill. He's been suspended for 2 games. They barely overcome Louisiana Monroe 21-16. I mean, David, who ever heard of an SEC team losing to Louisiana Monroe, right? That couldn't happen. That just couldn't happen. A freshman named Kyle Allen was the quarterback for A&M. The Aggies are 6-3, but they're not very good. And Tommy, got your hat on today. Vanderbilt improves to 3-6 with a 42-28 win over mighty Old Dominion. Redshirt freshman Johnny McCrary ties a school record with 5 TD passes. He was 20 of 29, 281 yards. Ralph Webb had 166 yards rushing, a school record. And because their head coach comes to speak to the Little Rock Touchdown Club, Arkansas State is revitalized, 5-3 now overall, 3-1 in conference, following a 44-28 victory over the Idaho Potatoes in Idaho. I think that's their mascot, isn't it? Anyway, it was the 3rd consecutive road game for the Red Wolves. They have 3 of their final 4 games at home in Jonesboro. Michael Gordon had a Sun Belt record 5 touchdown runs in that game. ASU scored 35 points off Idaho turnovers. Now, ASU only led that game against the 1-7 Idaho team, 30-28 going into the 4th quarter, despite being outgained 428 to 295 at that point. They had had a 2-point lead, and then they just took over in the 4th quarter. And congratulations to the Golden Lions of UAPB's 2nd consecutive win, 24-14 against Mississippi Valley State. Golden Lions are now 3-5 overall, 2-4 in the SWAC. They took a 17-0 first half lead and then hung on in Pine Bluff for the win. UCA no longer tied for the Southland Conference lead after being upset in a game in Plano, Texas by Abilene Christian, 52-35. Bears fall to 5-5 overall, 4-0 in the conference. They had 7 turnovers in that game. Abilene Christian scored 31 points off of those turnovers. Bears just killed themselves. Abilene Christian won despite playing without its starting quarterback, and they gashed the Bears for 286 rushing yards. Now, there's still one undefeated football team in the state of Arkansas, and that is Ouachita. Rocket, that's kind of the Notre Dame of Arkansas, just so you'll know. I'm give you a little Arkansas lesson. All right, Ouachita team is 8-0 for the first time since 1914. The first time Jim Rasco saw them play, 1914. They started 8-0 that year. That team beat the University of Arkansas seriously at Fayetteville and beat Ole Miss in Memphis that year. But they're 8-0 for the first time since then, 38-28 over SAU. Ouachita did trail 21-17 after 3 quarters, but scored 21 consecutive points to start the 4th quarter. SAU falls to 4-4. Ouachita finishes, I mean, this just been Cliff Harris's year with this new award. Ouachita finishes the season home games 5-0 at Cliff Harris Stadium in Arkadelphia. Meanwhile, Henderson and Harding, both also nationally ranked, remain 1 game back of Ouachita. They're both 7-1. Henderson beat a 2-6 UAM team 49-7. Kevin Rogers, again, who will be a finalist if he doesn't win it for the Harlan Hill Trophy, which is the Heisman of Division II, was 28 of 36 passing for 346 yards and 3 TDs. Harding beat Southeastern Oklahoma 51-6. Bisons had 467 yards rushing. They're the top rushing team in all of Division II. 6 players had rushing touchdowns. So we've really got 3 fine Division II teams in Arkansas, and Harding, Henderson, and Ouachita. Arkansas Tech falls to 3-6, a 15-0 loss in Russellville to 6-2 East Central Oklahoma. Wonder Boys had just 47 rushing yards in that game and 114 passing yards. Hendricks, meanwhile, 5-3 in Division III after a 35-26 loss to 8-0 Center, despite Seth Peters passing for 366 yards for the Warriors. All right, this week, we've got Alabama going into Death Valley to play LSU. How many of you like LSU to knock off Alabama at home on Saturday night? A handful. We'll recognize them. We'll recognize them on Monday if that happens. We also have struggling Texas A&M at Auburn. We've got Florida at Vanderbilt. We've got Georgia at Kentucky. We've got UT Martin at Mississippi State. And we've also got Presbyterian at Ole Miss. I won't ask you to predict that one because it's Presbyterian. It means the outcome is preordained of that game. So, a little theological humor there, David. When you hadn't won a conference game in more than 2 years, you do what you can on the humor front. Better theological humor than scatological humor, although we may go scatological if we don't win soon. Also, in the state, South Alabama is at Arkansas State. Lamar is at UCA. Prairie View A&M's at UAPB for homecoming. Henderson plays SAU in the Boomtown Classic in El Dorado. And Ouachita is at UAM. So no excuses. You've got games Saturday in Jonesboro, Conway, Pine Bluff, El Dorado, and Monticello. Get out and see a college football game. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Rex. Real quick, let me acknowledge some folks that are here. Good to see Chris Peterson back, former athletic director at UALR. Yeah, let's give him a round of applause. The guy who hired both the coaches that Rex was just talking about, Gus Malzahn and Hugh Freeze, former athletic director at Arkansas State. Dean Lee, welcome, Dean. Mentioned Bobby Bowling, one of the great coaches here in our state, one of the great coaches who every week I pick up a national publication, and he is quoted all over the place. PA's head coach, Kevin Kelly. Welcome, Kevin. Glad to have Kevin here. And if we have any trouble, we have now Kathy Lee and Ken Reynolds. What degree black belt are both of you? Be honest. What is it, Kathy? 7th degree and 8th degree black belts. So let's give them a round of applause. Kathy Lee and Ken Reynolds from ATA. They're also connected with me from Panama City. So we're in. Matter of fact, there's one guy here I want you to take care of a little bit later today after the meeting. And then I want to introduce a couple of special guys. One is I didn't realize all these guys played together, but one of the great receivers in the history of Arkansas's program, and also played with Rocket at Dallas. Anthony Lucas, everybody. Where's Anthony at? Where's he at? Stand up, Luke. And I reached out to this next guy who was a great kickoff returner himself in the NFL. I can't remember the stat I always throw out with you, Reggie. It seemed like he had a kickoff, a punt return. I can't remember what it was, but had a great career in the NFL, played for Houston at Murray State. I reached out to Reggie. Reggie helped me get Rocket, and Reggie helped me get Michael Irvin. So let's give him a big Touchdown Club welcome. Reggie Swinton, everybody. So you had Rocket, Reggie, and Lucas all together at Dallas. So it's great to have all you guys together. And Jim Rasco, come up and give Rocket the best introduction he's ever had. Jim Rasco, everybody.
Okay, I'm going to have to talk about as fast as he ran to cover 3 seasons in Notre Dame, 2 seasons in the Canadian League, and 9 seasons in the NFL. So let's start by going back to November the 5th, 1988. Freshman Raghib Ismail becomes the first Notre Dame player to return 2 kickoffs for touchdowns in one game since Paul Kastner accomplished that feat for the Irish back in 1922 against the Hornets of Kalamazoo College. And yes, Rex, I was at that game. Still got my program at home. Notre Dame finishes the 1988 season with a perfect record, and the Irish are the national champions. Our speaker leads the nation in kickoff returns, and the Football News names him to its freshman All-America team. In the spring of 1989, the Rocket was unbeaten in the 55-meter dash, which included winning the event at the National Indoor Track and Field Championship meet. Now let's go to September 16th, 1989. It's number 1 Notre Dame versus number 2 Michigan, before 106,000 fans in the Big House at Ann Arbor. At the half, the Irish lead 7-6. Michigan kicks off to start the second half, and the Rocket takes it back 88 yards for a TD to extend the lead to 14-6. It's the first time in 32 years that Michigan has allowed an opponent to return a kickoff for a touchdown. In the fourth quarter, Michigan scores to cut the Irish lead to 17-12. But you all know what happens when you score. You got to kick off. So they kick it to the Rocket. Again, he takes it on his own 8 and goes 92 yards for a touchdown. And the Irish win 17-12. That puts him on the cover of Sports Illustrated for the first time. At the end of the 1989 season, sophomore Raghib Ismail is named first-team All-America as a kick returner. Then in the Orange Bowl, following the 1989 season, Notre Dame faces unbeaten #1 Colorado. Due to an injury to the regular tailback, Ismail moves to running back early in the game, gains over 100 yards on the ground, including a clutch 35-yard touchdown run in the third quarter to lead Notre Dame to a 21-6 victory. It's no surprise that the Rocket is named MVP of the Orange Bowl. As a junior in 1990, Ismail is a unanimous All-American. He's named to 7 All-American teams as a wide receiver and is named to the other 2 as a kick returner. As Lou Holt's guy just told you, the Rocket was runner-up in the Heisman voting to the nation's top passer, Ty Detmer of BYU. However, Ismail was selected as the National Player of the Year by the Walter Camp Foundation. Notre Dame lost 2 games. Both losses were when Ismail was injured and unable to play. Following the 1990 regular season, for the second consecutive year, Notre Dame faces #1 Colorado in the Orange Bowl. With 65 seconds left in the game, Colorado is leading 10-9, but is forced to punt. Instead of punting out of bounds, Colorado kicked it to Ismail on his own 9-yard line. Here's Dick Enberg's call on NBC TV. The Rocket, he's corralled for a moment, breaks into the clear, 1 man to beat, and he won't get him. The Rocket Ismail has done it again, 91 yards, touchdown, Notre Dame. However, Colorado's Tim James was blocked from the side by Notre Dame's Greg Davis, and the block was ruled to be clipping. Although TV replays indicated a genuine, if marginal, foul, James admitted afterward that even if he had not been blocked, he couldn't have caught the Rocket, who's been referred to as the fastest gridiron star in college history. For his 3-year college career, the Rocket averaged 8 yards a carry, 13.5 yards per punt return, 22 yards per pass reception, and 28 yards for every kickoff return. His decision to go pro puts him on the cover of Sports Illustrated for the second time in February of 1991. The next month, in March of 1999, he again won the National 55-meter championship with a blazing time of 6.1 on what was described as a slow track at Princeton University, slow indoor track at Princeton. When I give you the dollar amount, you'll understand why he elected to pass up his senior year at Notre Dame. In April of 1991, Ismail signed with the Toronto Argonauts of the Canadian Football League for $18.2 million for 4 years. The yearly salary of $4.55 million was at the time the largest contract in the history of either Canadian or American football. In his first year in Canada, he was named to the CFL All-Star team as a wide receiver and received the Frank M. Gibson Trophy as the outstanding rookie. He led Toronto to a 36-21 victory in the CFL's Grey Cup championship game. In the fourth quarter, after Calgary had scored to cut Toronto's lead to 22-21, Ismail took the kickoff and raced 87 yards into the end zone untouched. He was selected as the MVP of the championship game. Though he passed up his senior season at Notre Dame, Rocket kept his promise to his mother by returning to South Bend and earning his degree in American Studies in 1994. As Lou Holt's guy just told you, the Rocket had 2 younger brothers that also played college and pro football. They were nicknamed the Missile and the Bomb. So when the Rocket's mother was interviewed by Leslie Visser on TV, Ms. Ismail grinned and said, "They call me the launching pad." Okay, I've run out of time, so let me wrap this up. After 2 years in Canada, Toronto ran into financial problems, so the Rocket came to the NFL, played 3 years with the Raiders, 3 years with Carolina, and 3 years with the Cowboys. After having 1,024 receiving yards with Carolina in 1998, he came to the Cowboys in 1999 and caught 80 passes for a career-high 1,097 yards. He started 13 games for the Cowboys in 2001, caught 53 passes for 834 yards, and retired at the end of the season. Those are the facts. Now here's the man you came to hear. From Notre Dame, number 25, and the Dallas Cowboys, number 81, the Rocket, Raghib Ismail.
No, that was awesome. God bless you. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Thank you. Wow. This is amazing. I love it. Lord have mercy. This is, man, you guys, you need to be the main speaker. Lord have mercy. I never heard anyone do such a masterful job at telling you who won and who lost. That was unreal. All right. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me. It is such an honor and such a privilege.
I am always amazed whenever I'm in a room full of people who have a focus, a single focus. Whenever I meet people who head up a room full of people who have a single focus and all the people who put it together, it always reminds me of how powerful human beings are and how powerful we are when we decide that we are going to produce. We're going to be fruitful in an area of our lives that aren't just going to benefit us, but it's going to benefit everyone that we touch. I want to touch on that for a minute, because one of the things that I do and I've learned to do in my life is I've learned to identify patterns that have both affected my life and affect the community that I happen to be a part of. Before you invited me to come and present to this marvelous audience of people, one of the things I was noticing was every time I turned on the radio, every time I turned on the television, every time I was in an environment where people could be affected in such a way that it would have positive results, not only on the people, but them going out into the community at large, there was something that I noticed that troubled me. There was something that I noticed that in my heart, my grandmother used to always tell me, pay attention to what your heart says. It was something that I noticed in my heart that wasn't quite right. It was very subtle, and I could tell that the people who were actually receiving this message, it was seducing them. And it was literally, when I put my finger on it, I identified it. What's happening right now in the system that we are a part of, we might not be in the system, but we're a part of it somewhere or another, we interact with it, is that there is a message being propagated that if you don't identify it, the message will go past the natural guard that you have been put on this earth with to protect your heart from things that will prevent you from becoming everything that you were put on this earth to be. The culprit is the mantra that convinces and tries to convince us over and over that the highest form, the most prestigious platform that we could be on as a culture, what keeps everything going is to be consumers. And they make it palatable by throwing the word educated in front of it. So they convince and do their darndest every day to reinforce that if you're an educated consumer, you're doing your job. I'm here to tell you that is a lie from the pit of hell. I remember my grandmother. When my father died, we were 10 years old. I was 10 years old. My grandmother was 77 years old. My mother went from being able to be at the house and take care of the children. All of a sudden, my father's gone. Now, in order to keep everything afloat, my grandmother, talking to my mother, realizes that, man, she has to go out and 3 jobs. All of a sudden, she's gone all the time. We're coming home and we're doing the best we can to raise ourselves, kind of not really working out, and the environment is getting more volatile that we were living in. My grandmother, 77 years old, calls my mother and says, hey, send the boys, myself and my 2 brothers, send the boys to come live with me. You do what you can, send what you can, but we got to get them out of that environment. And a part of her doing that was she wanted to make sure that the foundation that was built in us was one that would be unshakable when it faced what the culture and what the environment would bring against us. And one of the things she said that I recalled while I was checking out, why this consumption, this consuming, this what, something is not right about this. It's everywhere. I remembered something she said that helped me to identify what I was seeing that was wrong. I remember my grandmother used to have little Bible studies with us. You know, she was a Sunday school teacher, and out of respect for her, even though we weren't Christians at the time, we were actually born Muslims, so that was a whole nother paradigm conflict. But we still respected my grandmother. And so we would listen to her. And she pointed out that every human being, based on a biblical model, that was put in position on this earth was blessed this way by the Most High God. The blessing was declared by saying, be fruitful, multiply, and replenish. You get the first three right, it leads to you learning how to subdue, learning how to conquer, and learning how to stand in dominion over the call on your life. Now, I don't know about you, but if my grandmother, who loves me enough as a 77-year-old woman to say, hey, let me come and be a refuge for you, if she tells me that the blessing is connected to being fruitful, which is production, and then everything else that I'm hearing is saying, oh, no, you don't want to produce, you want to consume. Something's not right about that last statement. So before I get into anything, I want to warn you, I want to pull your coattail, I want to give you a heads up. Do not fall for it. Do not believe it. If you become a consumer the way the culture is trying to entice you to be, you will always be working from a place of subtraction. It's always going out. The production, the producer, the one who's fruitful, according to the blessing, works from a multiplied source. Now, even in that dynamic, there was already identified that there was going to be a need for replenishing. So when you have to replenish from a multiplied source, it's all right. The consumer is the slave to the producer. You're beholden to the one who figures out, hey, I see the problem. I know how to fix it. Don't be that man. Don't be that woman. Don't stand for it. Do not stand for it. In 2004, I heard a lecture by a man who was a genetic physicist, Bruce Lipton. You can look him up on YouTube. And it was talking about the biology from a scientific level. It was talking about the biology of belief. And science has tapped into, and they've known this for years, they've tapped into the secret that every man, woman, and child on the face of this earth, they've tapped into the secret that will literally allow for what you desire to be manifest. And here's the secret, real simple. Whatever you, listen to me closely, whatever you truly believe, science says you give the power to become reality. So for me, when I heard that, I recalled something that my grandmother told me when I was a youngster. And my grandmother, you know, she was born in 1913. She had no education beyond like the 5th grade till she had to go to the sharecropping route with her mom and dad, all the whole thing. Where'd she get this education from? She said, I remember, she said, when I came to her in a moment when I was filled with doubt and unbelief, she looked at me and said, baby, all things are possible for them that believe. Nothing shall be impossible. So I'm listening to the scientists, and I'm sitting there like, whoa, she was right. What? So if that's the case, it is vital that everyone sitting in this room learns the fundamentals of identifying what you truly believe. It is vital. Statistics say that it looks like there's a lot of successful men and women in here. Like you got it figured out. Business, family, spiritually. You got it going on. But statistically, everybody in here, you haven't reached 1/10 of the power and the full manifestation that you were put on this earth to accomplish. And whether you know it or not, the mantra, because you haven't been able to identify it, has convinced you that, okay, I can be complacent now. Somebody else can do it. Somebody else can figure it out. I've done what I was supposed to. No! Don't accept it. Do not receive that input. So I'm going to share with you a very simple way to identify what you truly believe. And I'm here to say, when you identify the culprit and it tells you that you can't, that there's not a possibility, that it can't be me, you kick that lie out. The way you identify what you truly believe, the environment has to be such that there is tribulation, there is challenge, there is what people might call trouble. It's all relative and it's all different to everybody that you come across. But in that moment, whatever that moment happens to be, you have to ask yourself a question. What do I expect to happen? I'm here to tell you that your expectations and what can be deemed by some the impossible circumstances, whatever that is, and it's that internal voice. Because you can say something out here, but what's in here is telling you what your heart's condition really is. It far surpasses what's in your heart, far surpasses what your brain is doing. Most of us are operating up here. That's why we're not accomplishing everything we can. We need to get back in contact with this. That's why I remember my grandmother saying, above all else, guard your heart. For out of it are the issues that affect your life. So literally, when the expectations say, no, I don't think so, not me, I've never done it before, what? That's the whole truth. That's what you truly believe. And if what you truly believe says it's not possible, I don't have a chance, not me, maybe somebody else, you need to change. You need to renew your heart, the mind of your heart. You need to change that. You need to reprogram it. And you need to reprogram it with a truth that's greater than the circumstances that you're facing. The 1991 national championship game, we're playing Miami, Orange Bowl, against University of Colorado. We played them the year before. We beat them. I think we ended up number 2 or 3 in the country, something like that. This particular game, we were playing down there. There was 1 minute and 6 seconds left on the clock. If you were to ask me before that game, hey, Rocket, what happens and what would be your opinion if you found yourself in a position where you were behind in the game and they were either going to kick the ball off to you guys or they were going to punt the ball to you and you had over 90 yards to go? Do you think that you would be successful? Do you think that you guys could do it? Based on the history that our special teams had up until that point, I would have confidently said, absolutely, no doubt. That's nothing, small thing to a giant. If they would have said, Rocket, what if that same thing happened and they called it back? I'd have been like, well, we just have to do it again. That's what I would have thought that I truly believed. Well, guess what? That happened. Check this out. It was 1 minute, 6 seconds left. We're down 9-10. Fourth quarter. It's a slobber knocker, no holds barred, physical 3-yard cloud of dust type of a game. And they're getting ready to punt to us. So I'm back deep. And nothing in here has anything to do with we're not going to be successful on this return. Everything in here is so confident. Notice where I'm pointing. Everything in here is so confident because of my past history. Man, this is nothing. I'm so confident that I remember somebody that sounded just like the Lou Holtz guy on the phone prior to this doggone session of me getting up here and speaking, whistling. On the sideline, he whistled. I turned to him, and he's mouthing, Rocket, middle return, son, middle return. No fair catch, middle return. I felt him spittle cross the pit. Well, that's another story. Literally, I was so confident, and I thought I believed. I literally gave him the thumbs up. It's on YouTube somewhere. People are like, Rocket, what are you doing thumbs up? I just tell my coach, we're going to do it. I gave him a thumbs up. I'm like, yeah, coach, right here. We got you. No problem. Middle return. I got you. It's all good. They punt the ball. I see it in the air. And literally, the first thought that came to my mind was, okay, no matter what, don't go down. Nothing is going to take you down. Boom, I catch it. It's a middle return, so I scan the middle. There's a couple of people here or there moving. Kick a hit. Boom, don't go down. Boom, don't go down. And I see off to my right peripheral vision a lane. So even though it's middle return, take what they give you. Bam! I take it, and I'm gone. Touchdown. In the end zone, all types of just man love going on. I love you, jumping on me, everything. And then the tribulation hit. And the tribulation sounded like this in the stadium. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a flag on the play. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a flag on the play. All of a sudden, what I truly believed in that circumstance came to my mind. The first self-defeating thought, man, I'm tired. The second self-defeating thought, man, they're probably not going to kick it to us again. So they removed me from my base of confidence. The third self-defeating thought, our offense isn't built to go 90 yards in a minute and whatever, or a minute and maybe 50-something seconds left on the game clock. And guess what? Everything I truly believed became reality. Now, I just use a simple football analogy. Please think of your life. Don't settle just because you're successful on the outside. Dig deep, and there's some reprogramming you have to start doing. Don't accept the mantra that because you're an educated consumer, you're on top of the world. No. You're on top of a house made of straws, and you weigh well over the weight limit to crush that thing. Don't accept it. Identify what you believe and make up your mind in every aspect of your life. When you leave here, there is nothing. Tell you what my grandmother told me. All things are possible to them that believe. Nothing is impossible. Walking the blessing. Walk in it. Don't accept anything less. The next generation, whether it's these high school students that you are honoring, they absolutely need you. The elders in the community, they absolutely need you. It's vital. Don't accept anything less. I had to get that off my chest. And I thank you for hearing that. When David asked me to be a part of this, he said that there was possibly, if there was time, I don't know how much time we have. We have enough time? Okay, now somebody has a question out here somewhere. I know, okay, I see one over here. So we're going to do the next 10 minutes or so, question and answer, and then we will conclude with you bringing back David. All right, so I saw a hand go up on the right. Bring it up. What you got going on? Okay. Yes. Okay, the entire process of how I got to the CFL was essentially this. After that game I just talked to you about, got home, had no intention of doing anything professional at all. My brother came into my room and said, Ragib, Chris Zorich, his mom is dead. He came home from the game, found his mother dead on the floor. All of a sudden, my heart, for whatever reason, first it was great sadness for my teammate, then it was great fear overtook me. And people often ask me, what kind of regrets, if you have any, would you identify? My decision to go to the CFL or go pro, I didn't know the CFL was even in the picture at the time. It was based on fear. It was based on a fear of, man, I'm the man of the house, and what if my mother dies? I'm not going to. I need to be able to provide for her right now because you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. So that took me to a point where I was like, I need to be I need to go out and be a professional, start earning money. Got to start negotiating with the NFL because I declared myself a professional. Every NFL team was the first time I had actually understood what collusion meant, and this is what happened. Literally, if at the time you were supposed to be a potential first pick of the NFL draft, you had to sign a contract prior to the draft because of what happened with John Elway. And everybody knows John was supposed to go to the Baltimore Colts, but ended up saying, hey, I'm just going to play baseball because I don't want to play for the Colts. I want to play for another team. So we're talking to 5 of the worst NFL teams at the time anyway, 5 of the teams, and in negotiating, they all offered like a 5-year, $1.5 million contract with, I think, signing for $400,000, and it was just kind of, prorated as the contract would play out. And so in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, like, man, this is weird. I would think that if one team really wanted me over another team, they would offer maybe $5 more than another team that really doesn't want me but just wants to be competitive and they're negotiating. Well, none of the teams budged. So I was like, wow, welcome to the world of business. Welcome to the NFL. All of a sudden, we get a call from a guy by the name of Bruce McNall, from the office of Bruce McNall. In that call, he says, my name is Bruce McNall. I own Los Angeles Kings. I have a movie company. I have a holding company that has all type of collectibles, valuables, whatever. We'd like to fly you to Los Angeles because we have a plan that we think we'd like you to hear and see what you think. So, okay, they called me up, and I'm in my dorm room still because we're still in the spring semester. And they said, okay, the secretary called me and said, okay, a car is going to meet you downstairs, going to take you to the airport, and we'll see you. I was like, what do I do? Don't worry about it. We'll get everything here. So literally I get the call. The guy's downstairs. I go downstairs. They have a limousine there. I get in the limousine. And so we're driving to the airport. Now, mind you, I've only been to the airport that regular people go to. I've never been. I didn't even know there was. I used to think that other part of the airport where it was all those cool little mini planes, I used to think that was just like the reserve airport for the pilots or extra planes they would park. I didn't know what that was for. Well, I found out what that was for. So I literally get in the car and we drive to the airport, but we drive past, the regular airport. And I was like, am I being kidnapped? What is going on here? So literally, we drive past that. We get to this other part, and it's kind of like a little private. And he said, Mr. Ismail, come in. Takes me out, and we walk in, and literally, the people at the counter, your plane is ready. So I was like, did she say plane? Or shouldn't she have added ticket to that? Like, is the plane ticket ready? Like, what was going on when she just said the plane is ready? So literally, I walk out, and in the middle of the tarmac, this red carpet up into the deal, was an airplane that the Los Angeles Kings used to fly their hockey team around. And there was the pilot, the co-pilot, and the flight attendant, and me. And I was like, okay, I'm thinking I'm going to get on the plane. There's going to be a bunch of other people on it. I got on the plane. Other than those first 3 people I mentioned, it was just me and a whole bunch of food. I was like, is this serious? Like, what is this? Is this the Russian mob? I've heard stories about this before. I don't know. These oligarchs they're infiltrating the... So all of a sudden, I get on the plane, and the pilot's like, hey, your name's Rocky, right? I was like, yeah. He said, hey, you want to, we can take off one way. We can take off the conventional way, or we can take off like a evasive action, just... I was like, well, hey, let's do the evasive action. Man, I almost threw up in my mouth. That thing took off, gone. So we're flying. we get into Los Angeles. We're some private part of the airport, whatever. We get there, get the car. We drive right to, I had to get some clothes. Because, I'm in college, man. Oh, my gosh. By the time I was a junior, I had the same pants that I wore as a freshman, man. Almost castrated myself 2 times unintentionally. Just because my jeans were so tight. But what could I do? You're on a limited budget. Man, I'm telling you, it was crazy. So they take me to Rodeo Drive. And I'm like, I've heard about this place. I saw it in a movie one time. Well, now we're about to live the movie. Let's go. And they just started buying me all. I'm like, oh, man, this is great. I'm looking terrible. I look like Chevy Chase walking around with mismatch. I didn't know how to dress by the time. Anyway, take the flight. So we have to go to the Los Angeles Forum. At the Forum, the Kings are playing that day, and it's a big deal in Hollywood. So literally, I walk in, and there was this guy by the name of Sylvester Stallone. And I was like, yo, you're Rocky. My father took me to see him. What the? And he's like, hey. And he comes up, man. First of all, he's built. This is not an exaggeration. He has like 3 of the most, I never knew women could look like this. I was like, what? They're just kind of like this. And I was like, what? And he was the biggest thing going back then. So he's like, hey, welcome to Los Angeles, talking to me. Hey, Rog, where's Adrian? All that stuff, right? So we go up to the box, and literally, I meet Bruce McNall. He's like, hey, how you doing? Come on in. Yeah. So watching the game, I'm like, man, this is blowing my mind. After the game, meet all these other celebrities, and then he tells me this was the plan. He wanted to buy the Toronto Argonauts because he heard the NFL was looking to expand and that they wanted to also do it internationally. Now, even though Canada is in North America, he figured the actual city of Toronto and the facilities that they already had, the following, whatever, he wanted that to be his team where he bought it. He bought it for like $3 million or something like that. He wanted to buy it, and then when the NFL was about to expand, he wanted to be one of the options that they would vote on to see, and he brought John Candy, who was a really big-time actor back in the day. Got a chance to meet him, and Wayne Gretzky, who was, the cat's meow as far as hockey is concerned, and me. He was like, hey, we'll give you 10% of whatever we make over the $3 million as far as the ownership of the team and so forth and so on. So I'm thinking to myself, And then he goes, yeah, and we could pay you, easy $4 million a year, at least that. And I'm like, okay, somebody just offered me 5 years for $1.5 million, and you just said $4 million for 1 year? What the savage? What kind of math? And so essentially that was how I ended up there, and it worked out fine from a university situation because the spring semester, the Canadiens' season was over in November. So the spring semester didn't start until mid-January. So I would just go play the season and then take, after the season was over, take a month or so off, and then just go back to school for the spring semester until I graduated. So anyway, that was a long story, but that's the answer to that. Do we have time for anyone else? All right. So okay, now Coach Holtz is legendary for this part of the country, and he was a big impact in my life. And I told a Coach Holtz story earlier on the radio. How much time do we have? You sure? All right. So the prominent story that sticks out in my mind was when I was a freshman, I came to the university, and I was a running back in high school. So in high school, I'm in the backfield, quarterback. You know the running back. You get the ball and you make it happen. So when I got to the University of Notre Dame, and mind you, I was probably, even though the high school program had me listed at 5'10", 175 pounds, I was really like 5'8", 166 pounds, I think, my senior year. So literally, when I got on the campus, Coach just timed us all in a 40. And so I ran a 4.3 in high school. My first 40 time at Notre Dame was a 4.2 something. And so they were just kind of not believing, like, man. So I ran it again, another 4.2. We just put him at 4.28. We don't want to look silly. This is no way. This is hand time. So they put me at 4.28. Coach was like, son, your ass will not be in the back. So first of all, you weigh less than a leaf. Second of all, we're going to put your ass on out, and you're going to put the fear of God. And when he said the fear of God, literally both eyes, it wasn't quite cataracts, but it was the spittle just. And I was like, Coach, I didn't see what you said. I felt it. I felt it. So literally, put me at receiver. But what happened to me psychologically, that fear came on me again because I now thought, wow, I'm going from a running back who is facing head on and being the aggressor to now I have to turn my back. The defense is behind me. I don't know what this guy is doing. He might break my neck or whatever. Long story short, for the first 2 months of the season, they threw the ball to me 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 times. I didn't catch anything. And even in practice, if I did catch something, I would catch it and immediately fall to the ground like, oh, my gosh, I can't believe I just caught this. Thank you, Lord. I'm satisfied with just catching and falling. So all of a sudden, we get ready to play Purdue University. And they are notorious for the defense that they play. They had very aggressive corners. And it was man-to-man the whole time. So Coach Cordelli comes in, and he says, Rock, you're scoring a touchdown this game. I'm like, oh, why are you saying that, Coach? I even haven't caught in a pass in anything. How am I going to score a touchdown? You going to give me a reverse or something? No, we are going to take it to the house. I said, well, how's that possible? He said, they play man-to-man on every play. Whether there's bump and run or they're playing off, you are going to run past somebody, and by God's will, you about to catch this ball. It's about to be something different. You about to go home and live with your mother or something. You better catch this ball. That live with your mother part, that was not just embellished. Just in case you think they're like, no, it wasn't like that. So all of a sudden, we're coaching me up on how to run a post route because literally we were still in the three-point stance when I was at Notre Dame, which was amazing. I saw a film of Fred Biletnikoff doing that back in the early 70s. I don't know how did that happen, and we were in the 80s. Okay, so literally, they say, Rock, if he's on you, I want you to run up on him, outside stem, stack him. After about 10 to 15, hint out, and head to the far upright on the goalpost. I was like, okay, I could do that. If he's off of you, you run up until you're about to step on his feet, hint to the outside, and run to the far goalpost. I was like, okay, I could do that. And so in practice, it was working. I might have caught like 10% of the passes when we practiced, but Coach Holtz was convinced it was going to work in the game. So they called a play in the huddle. My heart's beating faster than my like, oh my gosh. So I line up, the guy's playing off. Bam, I get up. I get on his toes. Bam, I hit. And then I head for the goalpost. And as I'm heading for the goalpost, I can hear the anticipation in the stands like that big play is about to happen because they can see it from that, 100-foot view. And they're like, oh, everything is working out just right. I'm running for the goalpost, and I take a peek back to look at the ball because somehow the ball is supposed to meet me as I'm on this track heading for that goalpost upright. So I'm running, and I look, but my angle, I'm doing right. Something must have happened to the quarterback because that angle of the ball is all of a sudden changed. And all I know is I just threw my hands up like this. This is the God's honest truth. It looks like I'm looking, but I can't see nothing. It's just like I just threw my hands up like this, and boom. Did I just catch the ball? What? And I'm still running. I caught that mug. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, here's where the Coach Holtz part comes in. So I hadn't caught him. Okay. November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October. Okay, it was about 7 months since I caught a pass, like literally. And it was such the euphoric feeling that I had inside. I mean, everything was, I didn't know what to do. I was like, whoa, I can't. And so I saw people in the stands, right? They were on the field, but in the back of the end zone, I was like, I got to hug somebody. So I just ran and just jumped in the crowd. I started hugging people. I'm like, hey, who are you? Hey, man, this is awesome. Yeah. So celebration's over. I'm in the far end zone. I have to jog back. And oh my gosh, Coach Holtz was standing like this. His hat was down, and I could see the fury in his face. He was so angry. And I was like, why is this little man angry? We just scored a touchdown. Aren't we supposed to be celebrating the victory of others? You know what I'm saying? That the plan came together. Come on. Yo, he says, he did like this to me, and I knew he was trying to keep his composure because apparently the television cameras were on us. He like, and he didn't even look at me. He's like, son, the next time your ass wants to go in the stands before the game, you better let me know. And I will get your ass a ticket. Now go sit down. And that's, from a time perspective, that's the Coach Holtz story that always stuck with me. And after that, I was like, I got to figure out a way to get in the end zone but not do all that other stuff. So I just started taking the knee and said, thank you, Lord, thank you, Lord. So that's my Coach Holtz story. I don't think we have any more time. Please do not accept this mantra that consumption, and even if it's educated consumption, is the key to your life. It is not. Be a producer, be fruitful, multiply, so you can replenish from a multiplied source and not a subtracted source. You're more powerful than they want you to know, and don't believe anything they say. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your energy. I really appreciate how impactful you are in this community. And anything that you guys put your mind to is going to get done. Trust. Thank you very much. God bless.
Rocket Ismail, everybody. Southwest Conference Hall of Fame induction next week. Get your tickets and bring friends.